We're flashing back to hell, more specifically, a portal to hell somewhere in Indiana. Plus, we tracked down the priest who was brought in to close that hell portal. This priest is revealing what happened behind the scenes in an all-new interview. You're not going to want to miss it.
It's your first look inside the house known as the Portal to Hell, a place where demons supposedly wrought havoc with a helpless family in horror straight out of The Exorcist.
The power of Christ compels you!
This is the woman who lived in the House of Horrors with her 3 children before Zach Bagans bought it. Latoya Ammons fought back tears when she told us how they fled in terror after her daughter was raised right off her bed. She says the demons sounded like this.
We've waited 5 months. It sounded like something dead.
She says she anointed the rooms with holy oil and read aloud from the Bible, but the nightmare went on and listened to a sound that cannot be explained by police who looked into the mysterious goings-on. While 2 cops are talking in the basement, someone can be heard saying,
"You in there?"
What was your reaction?
I was in shock.
Enter Father Michael Maginot, a local priest who got permission from the Bishop of Gary, Indiana, to perform an exorcism on Latoya. Did you at one point believe this house was the portal to hell?
There was a portal.
Latoya moved out of the house and now lives many miles away. She knows her story is hard to believe.
Some people claim that you made this all up, that this was some sort of an elaborate hoax. Is this a hoax?
No, I don't feel that someone will have a reason to make something up like that.
Do you believe that house is possessed by demons?
I do. I feel that it's something very bad going on in that house.
How did you get involved with the house in the first place, and can you tell us a little bit about the exorcism you performed?
Yes, I got a call on April 20th, 2012 from the Gary Hospital, and they asked me to come out there to perform an exorcism.
The hospital asked you to perform an exorcism?
Yeah, and that was kind of a strange request. And I said, well, no, you need permission from the bishop to do that, but what's going on? And then they told me several staff members saw this boy walking up the wall backwards, flipping over the grandmother's head who was holding him, and sat down and turned at them and had with white eyes. So I went to the house on that Sunday.
And the kid was home from the hospital?
One was locked up in a child psychiatric unit, and the other 2 were put into foster care.
So tell me about the, once you went in and began to perform the exorcism, tell us a little bit about that.
It took about 6 weeks of investigation. I was thinking the children were possessed, but and trying to find out about that. Then I discovered, she was possessed, and so I put the crucifix on her to test it. She began convulsing, and so I took it off. I said, okay, yeah, and then she stopped.
How did you feel when that happened? I mean, had you seen something like that before? What was going through your head? Like, what were your emotions when she began convulsing?
Yeah, so I said, oh, there is something. Definitely there. The lights would flicker in the bathroom, and then I would go over there to take a closer look. And the moment I got to the bathroom, they would stop flickering. I did bless the house, but again, things were happening afterwards. The rods were swinging back and forth. There was oil coming down her blinds. There were footprints that appeared around her. I was there for 4 hours. And the last 2 hours, all these different phenomena were happening.
Zach Bagans was a documentarian who found out about this story and found out about you and your practice of trying to exorcise the demons from this house and became so involved with it that he actually bought the property. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. We were going to end the movie that, the house is fine and the story is over. I was kind of surprised Zach never called, and then I heard he was wrapping up. And so I did give him a call, and he told me that everything went haywire and such. All of a sudden I get a call that he demolished the house. And I go, oh, you didn't, tell me that. And so I was a little worried because now it's an open lot.
So once the house is demolished, it actually lets the spirits out? Is that what you're saying?
We did cleanse the property.
Right.
Okay? But anyone could go on there, do some sort of ritual there, and open it all up, and it could be 7 times worse.
Reopen the portal, kind of like...
Reopen it by doing some ritual there. Now try to reopen what was, cleansed.
Right.
And it could be worse than before.
Perhaps even more disturbing tonight, a report out of Indiana. You may have seen this on The Factor. Wait until you hear where we're taking the story. The report suggests that demons took over a family and their home. And Trace Gallagher has the details. Trace?
And Megan, the comparisons to the Amityville are notable because it was just days after the Ammon family moved into their house. They say the horror began, the black flies swarming, children being levitated, shadowy figures pacing the house. Here's the mother. Listen.
And I saw one like coming into full image. It was coming out of my closet. I've never seen it like that before. I would see the shadows, you know, but I've never seen it like how I'm looking at you and you're looking at me.
The family sought help, but between the horror stories, the kids missing school and being injured, the family doctor and child services got involved, with child services pointing the finger at mom, writing, quote, they believe the mother may have mental health concerns. They believe the children are performing for the mother and that she's encouraging the behavior. Then child services witnessed something that changed their view. The 9-year-old boy thrown against the wall with no one touching him. Then they write, quote, he had a weird grin on his face and began to walk backwards while the grandmother was holding his hand. He walked up the wall backwards. He flipped over and landed on his feet in front of the grandmother and sat down in the chair. Police also thought the story was a hoax until they went to the house and saw blinds dripping with oil and water where there was no source, and a mysterious figure in a window when no one was home. 37-year police veteran Captain Charles Austin saying, quote, every one of us who was there that day in the basement and who saw what we saw, we all think the same. We call it the same. That bit of dirt is a portal to hell. The family called a local priest, Father Michael Maginot, who was convinced demons had possessed the mother. He tried to contact the demons through 3 exorcisms. Here's the priest.
It was pretty much without incident until we get to the part of your name, and you asked for its name. Now, so far, she's always been silent. So, and I says, is your name whatever? And then all of a sudden, she started convulsing and such. So now, once you have a name, you kind of attack it.
And after she convulsed, he believes the exorcism in the end was successful. Megan.
Trace, thank you. Joining us now, the reporter with the Indianapolis Star who wrote the initial story and conducted more than a dozen interviews on it. Marissa Kwiatkowski is with me now. Marissa, good to see you. Let me start with this. After all the interviews you did of independent third-party witnesses and so on, do you believe the story?
It's not my job to believe or disbelieve this story. I will leave that to others.
It's not your job, but what do you think? I'm asking you. I mean, were you persuaded at all?
It's not my job to be persuaded either way. My job is to report the facts as they were told to me and to let people draw their own conclusions, and I wrote it that way deliberately.
Well, let me ask you this. You've got a police captain saying he believes. Did you interview the people who claim to have seen the boy walking backwards up the wall?
I interviewed the registered nurse who witnessed or says he witnessed the boy walking backward up the wall. I did not interview the Department of Child Services caseworker. However, I had her report from that incident.
And did she claim to see it as well?
She claimed to see it as well, yes.
Do you have any reason to doubt their accounts? I mean, as a reporter, you always go in skeptical.
I think they believe it, yes.
Is there any reason that you uncovered to doubt them? In other words, any history of their relationship with the truth, any performance complaints, that kind of thing?
Good question. No, there weren't any sorts of situations that gave me pause. People in credible positions doing typical work and, nothing to report.
How many eyewitnesses were there to the so-called possessed behavior other than the mother? Because, the mother may or may not have had issues. There was a psychologist saying she's got some issues and the kids are basically performing for her. How many people outside of the family who are verifying these accounts?
You mean in the hospital or outside of the hospital?
Anybody outside of the family.
It would take me a bit of time to count, but at least 5 or 6 people who say they witnessed things that were strange.
Is there any audio or visual?
There are not audio or visual representations of the boy walking up the wall or the levitation. There are photos of things that police saw while they were in the home, but nothing, no demons or paranormal or anything like that.
All right, we'll continue to follow it. Thanks for bringing it to our attention, Marissa. All the best.
Factor follow-up segment tonight. Last night, we told you about a 9-year-old Indiana boy who apparently was doing some very shocking things, so much so that exorcism was involved. The Indianapolis Star, that state's biggest newspaper, is heavily covering the story, and a captain in the Gary, Indiana police force, Charles Austin, says the situation is credible. That is incredible. Joining us now from Chicago, Father Michael Maginot, Catholic priest, who has been dealing with the situation. So, Father, I want to keep this fact-based, what you know, what you saw, what you did. Let's start with the boy. What do you know about him?
Actually, I have never met any of the children. The first time I heard about the incident was when, just after the boy walked up the wall backwards. There was a furor there, people running out, calling for the police, security, the chaplain. He called me. I was in my parish conducting a Bible study class, and I got the call because I was on call for the Catholic priest chaplain who was off at that time, and they called me in to do an exorcism. And I said,
but let me stop you there. Exorcism is a very rare and serious thing that the Catholic Church, and you have to go through a lot of hoops to get it approved, to get the people in. It disturbs me a little bit that the boy involved, and this is according to the newspaper and other eyewitnesses, was doing incredible things like walking up walls and things like that. But you yourself never talked to the boy. Why not?
Well, when I went to do the interview at the home with the mother and the grandmother, it was a 4-hour interview. And the first 2 hours were basically just getting information of all the occurrences and phenomena that was surrounding everything leading up to that incident at the emergency room in the hospital.
The problem I'm having with this is, number one, you didn't see the boy. I think the credibility of the Catholic Church is in a tough way now in this country. Exorcism is a very serious thing, very, very serious. I understand you got permission from the bishop in your diocese to do this. But it just seems to me that the story is not solid enough to go public with it. And there are a lot of people watching right now that say this is more mumbo jumbo from the Roman Catholic Church and no credibility here at all. How would you answer that?
Well, the 2 boys and the girl one was put into a lockdown psychological children's ward, and the other 2 were taken to the Carmelite sisters who take care of foster children. And so they were taken away from the parents and from the mother and the grandmother, and so I didn't have access to them. And I discovered in the investigation that the mother was also possessed. Mainly at the very end, I put the crucifix on her forehead and she began to convulse.
As a Catholic priest for many years, you believe that there is something unworldly involved with this family. You do believe that? All right, Father.
Yeah, I do.
I'm going to stop it there, and we appreciate.
No evil shall befall you, nor shall any plague come near your dwelling. For he shall give his angels charge over you to keep you in all your ways. I noticed there was like horse flies on the inside porch, and this was, the beginning of winter, so that was very odd to me. We would lock the basement door, and you would hear something hit the door, boom, and you would hear dogs barking. No dogs outside, no dogs. We would go look, no dogs.
One time she woke up in the middle of the night, maybe like 3 in, and they saw this shadowy figure pacing back and forth in the living room.
And I saw one like coming into full image. It was coming out of my closet. I've never seen it like that before. I would see the shadows, you know, but I've never seen it like how I'm looking at you and you're looking at me.
You could see it stretching his stomach. And my grandson was crying, oh, Mama, Grandma, help. And then we go to his leg, and his leg was bulging. I'm like, oh my God, Toya, look. It was bulging out of his arm. And then we pray over him, and we ignored him.
LaToya took me inside the house and showed me different stuff. I didn't see anything that was relevant to what she said, even though other people did. So I was very skeptical. I just figured she owed me money, and this is a fabricated story. And that's not strange to my walk of life. That does happen, you know. Like I said, I thought I heard it all. This is a new one to me.
And I told my daughter, I said, they're going to make it look like we're hurting these children. So we're going to have to get some help some kind of place, some kind of way. We got to convince somebody that this is actually going on.
This boy was in one of the emergency room areas. He was kind of growling, and his grandmother was holding his hands and trying to coax him back. And all of a sudden, he started, she was kind of backing him up and toward the wall, and then he started to walk up the wall backwards. Did a flip over her head. And then there was the psychologist and the social service worker in that room that saw that, and they ran out and got the security, and the security called the chaplain, and he called me, and they got the police involved and all that.
Until he saw what the other one did when he went up that wall. Then he like, oh my God, this is impossible. Nobody could do this. Nobody.
There's 5 people that saw this happen, and they're, different walks of life. That does change things a little bit. I have a hard to believe that all 5 of those people will say this just to be saying it.
We'll have to do an exorcism. It was pretty much without incident until we get to the part of your name, and you asked for its name. Now, so far she's always been silent. And I said, is your name whatever? And then all of a sudden she started convulsing and such. So now once you have a name, you kind of attack it. You try everything, you kind of go through the whole rite to see which things push the buttons of, the entity. And once you found what does it, you keep on using it over and over. Whenever you would praise God in Latin, no reaction. But you start condemning the demon, condemning, the evil spirit, all of a sudden she's reacting to that. And then we'll go back, and the moment you go back to praising God, she would stop reacting. So I went through the whole rite, and then finally went the second time, and then it was just focusing on the condemnations part. And that was kind of riling up. I think I even went a third time. But you could tell it was kind of weakening, and then eventually she fell asleep again.
Demons can actually possess you, use you, so you can give them souls, and they make you take your own life, so, it's real. And a lot of people don't think about it. They live their lives day to day, and you never think that it would be you.
In the kitchen, and I was walking out of the kitchen. My grandson was up in the air like you picked me up and threw me into this deep freezer. First, both of them was over here, and they kept doing this. My grandson's like, the other little one, my legs, grandma, my legs. I said, okay, I'm gonna hurry up. We gonna get out of here because something wrong with messing with you guys too much. He said, my legs is hurting. And then my other grandson was like, yeah, my legs hurting too, grandma. We gotta get out of here. And all of a sudden he went to walk and it tripped him. He hit the floor. He said, I'm okay, grandma, I'm okay. I said, no, it's messing with you guys too much. We gotta go. And I went in the kitchen just for a half a second and turned around and saw something, picked him up and throw him into this deep freezer, head first. And then turned around and threw him down like that. And my daughter's like, Ma, I told you gotta watch him. I said, I can't watch everybody at the same time. It's like it moves too fast, you know? I'm watching this one, watching that one, watching this one, and I'm looking up and back into this one, the other one going crazy, and she's standing there doing this, holding her head because it's all in her head, and it gets in her hands, get hot, her neck get hot, her feet get hot, then it's all over her. And then my granddaughter started crying because it's all chatting, and they was chatting, saying this evil chant, one after the other, just saying this crazy stuff. She gonna have to tell you what they were saying. They all started doing it. I started talking to them, praying to them, telling them to stop it, stop it, stop it. Don't pray, don't do that. Because I know it's the Satan chant. And they all three did it, one after the other. They never even heard of this stuff before. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And it just go from one ordeal to another one. It's crazy. I'm like, this is unbelievable. I'm like, nobody's gonna believe this, Toya. I knew it. I said, nobody. They're gonna think everybody's crazy. I knew it. And that's the first thing that came out of the doctor's mouth until he saw it get into my grandson, and he started going off because I saw it coming. I saw it. It was trying to come out before I brought them in the office. I kept them in the car with my daughter. When they came in, my daughter sat there and held them and kept praying over them, but it was trying to break loose in front of the doctor anyway. What it did was, once we came out, it started seeing all kind of crazy stuff. Head was twisting, eyes rolling, the same way they usually do, and then his mouth looked crazy, it started twisting, and he started talking in tongues and stuff, and then it started cursing at you and saying evil stuff, and then it threw my grandson completely across the room as the nurses, and the doctor saw it, and he ran. The nurses were standing in the door, and they bagged up saying, oh my God, oh my God. And they would not come back in the room. No nurse, no doctor. And after they did it, both the boys passed out. I was holding, my daughter was holding. We was praying, trying to make them wake up. They would not wake up for no reason. The doctor, I told my granddaughter to go get the doctor would not come back in the room. I came down here one time by myself, cleaning up, because my daughter was supposed to come with me, but this was messing with her real bad. And I have all kind of sinus problems. But for some reason I started coughing and choking so bad I couldn't breathe. And they would try to brush it off as mold, but I had the landlord to come down here and take care of the mold. And I was doing fine, but I was praying the whole time I was down here. And they don't like for us to pray. They don't like that at all. And I was walking around praying, washing, putting clothes in the dryer, take them to the kitchen, start all over again. And something just started choking me so bad, like it just took, I coughed so hard, my back started hurting. Pain hit my back really bad. And my eyes was running, my nose was running, to the point I couldn't breathe. I had to get up out of here. I had to run upstairs. My godson was reading the Bible, and she was praying at the same time. And she said all of a sudden, he said something, felt like something was stabbing him in the stomach. He kept going, oh, stop it. I said, what did it do? He said, it was stabbing me in my stomach. And she told him to keep on reading the Bible, and the more he read, the more they would stab him in the stomach. Again, just punch, stab like something real sharp. Mm-hmm. So they did it for so long, he came out, but before they came out, she said they saw something fly across the room. This was in here. This was over here in this box, because I knew where it was, because I packed this up. This was over here in this box, and then right here. Mm-hmm. My daughter and my godson said this flew across the room, blam, like that. They didn't even pick it up to see what it was. You see what it is?
Yeah, it's a Holy Family.
And my daughter, when she saw it, when I told you she saw it forming in the bedroom, she said it was coming out of her closet. She said it was standing there and she saw it full blown. She said, Ma, it looked like a scary, ugly, black monster. But she wouldn't say it in the house. She couldn't talk. She was like, I can't tell you. I can't tell you what I saw. I can't say it. I can't say it. I had to leave here, take her and get her hotel room, and sit her down and calm her down before she told me. I was like, what's the point? It followed us into the rooms. It started jumping the kids in the rooms.
Here, Father Maganot explains how he performed 3 exorcisms, 2 in English and 1 in Latin, on Latoya Amons, and it was hit at his church, St. Stephen the Martyr in Maryville, Indiana. Now this is Father Maganot again. It's M-A-G-I-N-O-T. Is how his name is spelled. And he set out to disprove this case. And before he was finished with investigating this case, he was thoroughly convinced and performed exorcisms. And let's scroll down and I'll show you the crosses that he used. These are the crucifixes that were involved in the exorcisms on the family and the house also. This police captain right here is the captain of the Gary Police Department, and he says that they call this place that this bit of dirt is a portal to hell, and they all came to that same conclusion after going to this place and having anything to do with it. Now, Captain Austin also claims that he was attacked by spirits outside the house even, including one occasion when his car moved by itself. So these people were obviously being spooked and they felt like they were being attacked. And this guy here just doesn't seem to me to be like a man who would be prone to just believe in anything. There must have been something really go on. And this is Captain Austin. This right here is a social worker's hand. Her name is Samantha Lilac. She touched a cabinet that was seeping with clear oil, and it turned her finger white at the right top there. You can see it. And it was like a blister after a burn, and she vowed never to return to this place. And she said it was painful, and I don't blame her. It looks pretty bad to me. And anyway, this social worker was there investigating this case with the police department, and the police department and the social workers basically didn't want to go back anymore. This is supposedly on the blinds and on the woodwork there. You're supposed to be able to see some of the clear oil that the social worker touched. I personally can't see it, but it might be in this area right here that they're talking. Now this right here are the stairs. When the police came to investigate this case, they ended up thinking that there might be a body buried under the stairs because most of the activity took place under the stairs or on the stairs here in this basement. And when they dug a hole that was approximately 4 feet deep underneath these stairs, they ended up finding a boy's sock. The ankle portion of the sock was cut out, a fingernail that was a fake fingernail, and a women's pair of panties that were 4 feet deep. When they got to that point at 4 feet, they found this, and that made them think that there was some kind of satanic curse or something. It was someone who had tried to put on the house, and that was somehow what they did, like a voodoo ritual or something, possibly. Interesting. Now, both the police officer and the priest believe that demons may have something to do with the home's past, like we said a little bit ago. But during the dig, they found 5 foot down. I was mistaken about the 4 foot or whatever I said. But into the dirt, a bizarre collection of objects. Boys' socks with the ankle portion cut out. A fake fingernail in women's panties. And while the priest was there at the house, he said that ghostly things were easier to deal with. A lot of the times as Catholics, this is how Catholics might do it, that they can have a mass, pray for them, tell them to go into the light, not be afraid. He said, but demons are different. You're inviting in guests from other realms, and they don't necessarily want to leave. He's talking about the people have invited these in, or somehow they were invited in. And during his visit to the Carolina Street house, the Father Magnat said that among many strange phenomenon he witnessed was the walls dripping with oil, the Venetian blind rods tilting from side to side in unison, and apparently for no reason, and seemingly set of footprints appearing on the floor, and different things like that. Pretty bizarre activity. Now this is Rose, the grandmother, talking about the big black monster that they saw. But she said that the final straw was one night they were all sitting around watching television as a family, and all of a sudden a bottle of Febreze floated up in the air, and it was hurled all the way through that room and into LaToya's bedroom, and it smashed a lamp. And after that lamp was smashed, they were looking and they could see a dark, shadowy figure in the room. So the Imans ended up going through 3 exorcisms, as famously depicted here in the 1973 movie The Exorcist. Now, also the woman that was in the video, the grandmother there, she said that in one case the boy actually was starting to show signs of demonic possession while him and his mother was talking to a doctor, and the boy actually walked backwards toward the wall and went up the wall up above the mother's head, and then flipped over and landed on his feet. And that's how bad that demonic possession was. And you see that kind of thing in movies, so someone crawling up a wall backwards and things like that. So this was a very serious deal, and many people, including the police, the social workers, and investigators, and what have you, doctors, nurses, there was a lot of people involved in this case, and they all believed it was a possession. So here's your proof. Something like this is not going to fool that many people of different walks of life. Demonic possession is real. And what ended up taking care of it was a priest who believed in Jesus Christ and used those crosses and the way that they do it, and that ended up working, and they exorcised demons from these people. So some people can be naysayers all they want, but the name of Jesus and the power of God, you got to cast these things out with the finger of God, and that's Jesus Christ, and the blood of Jesus Christ, and the Holy Ghost, and all that. You can see here that there is a figure in the window, and no one was home. Very interesting.
Well, let's see if we got anything. Yeah, I don't.
I'm going to ask.
Yeah. Huh. But they said, they would hear stuff in the basement.
Wait a minute, hold it. Somebody was burning candles back here, too. Look.
Oh, wow.
somebody was burning candles back there too. Wait a minute, hold it. They were burning candles here?
Oh, they're burning stuff all over the place here.
That's where.
I'm surprised the fire department hasn't been here. I'm surprised the fire department hasn't been here.
It sounds like to me that the thing said pay, 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 but it sounded to them like it said hey, and someone else said it sounded like something else, but it sounded like it said pay, pay, pay every time it said something, but they replayed it several times. So anyway, it seems that these manifestations were centered around LaToya, or designed to attack her and her children more than any of them. But it sounds like the priest was able to deal with it and somehow run these demons off from the family. And he did say that he dealt with the demonic possession with her, and he thought that he would have to do another one after she had kind of passed out, and things seemed to calm down at that point. But he really thought that there would have to be another episode of him dealing with this demonic thing after he was when he was talking in Latin to the demon and denouncing it and things like that. She would go into convulsions, and that kind of confirmed to him too that there was nothing that she was faking, because she couldn't understand Latin and understand what he might be saying to the demonic entity. But God bless the family, and I hope they are well and doing fine, and they don't have any more problems. And anyway, you all subscribe, and see you on the next video. The Amans have moved out of the house, and now the new tenants live there, and they claim to have had no problems and certainly not any demonic possession.
Billy, you talked about a particularly exciting ghost story. Can you share that with us? The most shocking thing you encountered during this investigation process?
Yeah, it goes back to a story that I actually covered when I was working at the Blaze, and this was back in about 2013, 2014. It involved a family in Gary, Indiana. It was a mother, her mother, and then 3 children. So a mom, a grandma, and 3 kids. And what is so unique about this story, and this goes back to what we were talking about before, that this actually was a story with a lot of documentation, and it happened again in Indiana, in America. So this was a story in which the mother was claiming that they were experiencing possession in their home. They moved into this house that they were renting, and they immediately started having problems. I recount this in depth in the book, but all sorts of strange problems that then started manifesting themselves into control. She was fully controlled. The kids were fully controlled. Now, CPS, Child Services, ends up getting involved in this case because she takes her kids to the doctor, and they start acting so erratic in the doctor's office that they call 911 and the ambulance comes. And the doctor is on record talking about this. And when I say on record, the Indianapolis Star, this is a legitimate newspaper that we all know of, they ran a story on this, a highly documented, well-documented story with sources. And so I had sort of covered that, and that remained in my mind. So when I went to write the book, I thought, I want to talk to people involved in this case, because let me tell you some of the things that apparently happened. They take those kids to the emergency room. CPS comes in, Child Services. There is a Child Services worker and a nurse, okay, who went on the record, claims that while they were in the hospital, the little boy essentially walked up the side of the wall and did like a somersault of some sort and landed on his feet. There are so many details. I interviewed police officers involved, a priest who handled the case. And what was so remarkable, this is one of those stories, they all corroborated all of these things that were so bizarre that happened in this case that they saw and that they experienced. And I would add that CPS worker it had such a profound effect on her that she quit her job and left the state. Right now, actually, of course, Hollywood is making a movie about this case. And so this is the next movie but the real case has some fascinating details in it.
So what does all this mean? Do you think that people should be worried about demonic forces in their life?
Go back to Ephesians 6. If you are a Christian and you are living right, you need to be aware. And here's what you need to be aware of. Not that you're going to be possessed. We're told that Satan shoots flaming arrows of the evil one. That's what's referenced in Ephesians 6. The real issue really seems to be when you start to engage in sin, or when you start to engage in things that would invite this sort of activity in, like an intentional inviting in. If you go back to the Old Testament, we are warned throughout Scripture, do not engage with fortune tellers. These are things that we are told throughout Scripture to avoid. And so we should be avoiding them, and we should be living the walk the right way. I don't know if that answers your question, but I think we don't need to be petrified and afraid. We need to be focused on Christ.
I agree with you. Greater is he who is in us than he who is in the world. And I think that fear and worry are, first of all, God doesn't give us a spirit of fear, and he tells us not to worry about anything, but to pray about everything and to trust God with everything, knowing that he has defeated his enemies and that he's working all things together for good for those who love him. How can we discern the difference between someone who says that there's some sort of demonic activity going on and actually somebody who's mentally ill? How can you possibly navigate through that?
Whenever you have somebody who's going to take somebody's word and immediately start only looking at a spiritual solution to something that they haven't investigated, that should give us pause. I cover a number of stories of people who have lost their lives in different countries and in different places because the assumption was they were possessed when maybe they were dealing with something else. And so the actions that have been taken to help those people have actually ended their lives or hurt them. When somebody is dealing with a spiritual issue, that person reacts to the spiritual things you're trying to do to fix it. When they're dealing with a mental issue, they're not reacting to those things. This is not, by the way, what we see in movies with, pea soup spewing out of people's mouth, their head spinning around. A deliverance and or an exorcism, however you want to term it. This is a prayer. It's a ceremony, not even a ceremony. It's an act of prayer over that person. That person is actively a part of it. And so that's a lot of information to say, you investigate. Because if you don't, you really could be harming people.
People today love to talk about spiritual warfare. Spiritual warfare. If Jesus said all power and authority, both in heaven and on earth, are given to me, well then how much power does that leave left for the devil? I say 0. What do you say?
Yeah, I think the power is really the only power you give the devil. If you look at, I pulled out a couple of parts of Ephesians 6 here because I think it's interesting, put on the full armor of God so you can take a stand against the devil's scheme. So we know the devil's going to try to scheme. He's going to try to do things. What is putting on the full armor of God? I believe it's being a Christian, living a Christian life, living that walk. That's why I said you don't have to fear that. Then he goes on to say, for our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of the dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. My interpretation of this is that you can, if you choose to engage, hand power over to evil, but that God has already won that battle. You have to willingly choose to say, I want to engage in this. I want this. And we do see there are people, I talk about one of the stories in the book, a Satanist, a woman who worshiped Satan, who really struggled because she wanted to do away with that relationship she had created with him. And she wanted to go through an exorcism. She felt she was being completely controlled, but she also struggled with liking that power that she got. So do I think it's power that's equal to God? Not at all. God's already won. Christ already beat that at the cross. It's done. That battle, we know how it all ends. But I do think people can willingly engage in that and attempt to get something back, as part of that arrangement with evil. But again, my job is not to tell people what to think, but to say, look, let's look at these cases. Let's explore them and investigate them. I go back to Acts 16. I go back to that slave woman. Clearly some arrangement was happening there, right? She had these spirits that were giving her this ability that people were using profit off of. So that's sort of what I'm talking about there.
I love what you said earlier, that we always go back to the Bible as our plumb line for truth. That is our news source. That is our fact truth source that never lies. Okay, how about for those people who have somebody in their life and they want them to pray for them because they feel like they're under spiritual attack, like my marriage is under attack, or my husband is under spiritual attack, or my children are under attack. Now, we know that because of Jesus' victory at the cross, if they're believers, Satan's attack has been subverted. It's been neutralized at the cross. So what's the best way we can pray for them?
I always encourage people to pray for the whole person, everything they're going through, looking at people's lives holistically. Even when they're only asking for prayer on that one thing, I have found for me that that's a really healthy way to approach this.
How does the study of ghosts and demons and exorcisms and spiritual battle actually point us back to the gospel?
Yeah, it shows us, I believe, our need, for the gospel. You look at the descriptions of Satan, throughout, and it's real, like in 1 Peter 5:8, the devil's an enemy who prowls around like a roaring lion. He's hatching schemes. That's in Ephesians. He is a tempter. We see that in Matthew and 1 Thessalonians. I mean, all of these horrible things, all of the worst attributes that people could have, right? Those are the attributes ascribed to Satan and to evil. And so when we understand that, I think it points us right back to why we need Jesus, right? People are going to disagree on all of these things. And I think that's okay. I actually think we need the freedom to disagree. And I love your pushback on that, right? Because if we don't have these conversations, we're not fully grasping and understanding all of this. If we never think about, well, who is Satan? It points us back to really, because we see that negativity to who Jesus is and our need for him. And so that, for me, like I said, personally, was the most peaceful thing, to really have that full picture of what the gospel is talking about. What is it we're being saved from, right? That to me is such a key piece of the puzzle.
So if you're afraid of walking through graveyards in the middle of the night under a full moon, get a hold of Billy's book and remember what we learned today, that Jesus has all authority both in heaven and on earth. He came to destroy the works of the devil. And Satan may be like a lion, but remember, his teeth have been ripped out. His head has been crushed at the cross. He's got a broken back and he's slinking off to the lake of fire, if not already slipping and falling in there already. If there's any battle for the believer, it's the battle of the mind. The Bible tells us that you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. So what are we going to choose to believe? The Bible says, for what a man thinks in his heart, so is he. So take heart, remember that Jesus has overcome the world, and you don't need to be scared of ghosts or demons or anything like that. Just remember to keep your eye on the King of Kings. Hi, I'm Kirk Cameron, and thanks for watching the Kirk Cameron on TBN YouTube channel. We hope you enjoyed the video. A couple of things. Please make sure that you hit the subscribe button and tap the bell icon so that you're notified every time a new video is posted. And be sure to share your takeaway in the comments and invite a friend to join the conversation.